Thank you very much for joining me, Kirsty.
Thank you for having me here.
Today, we're going to be talking about the problem solving because you're a strategic tech advisor at Splunk. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
So we've picked just two of the biggest problems that you think the corporates are dealing with at the moment, which are getting resilience and sustainability. Is that right?
Yeah, so very much top of mind for a lot of customers that we have at the moment. But also just for me personally as a technologist, I think these are the two very interesting areas for 2022 that we're going to see post-pandemic people really get involved in.
Great. And also, because this is in our Women in Tech series, I'm all about showcasing women who are in tech and doing really interesting stuff. So it just so happens that you're a woman and I'm a woman and we're talking about cool tech stuff. So
yeah, no, I think it's really good to see kind of the different roles we have out there, understand our community a bit better and network and just get involved in other people's stories. I think it's a really good way to do that.
Well, let's start with you though, so that people understand how you got to this cool sounding role in Splunk.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. So I studied mathematics at university and I had all the kind of usual, you don't look like a mathematician. So I don't know if people are watching, I don't know, you can judge, do I? But if I, from my voice, maybe you can hear I've got quite a posh accent, which I picked up at university. I actually am a northerner, very proud to be. And yeah, I got this accent at university, I'm quite white, blonde hair, and just don't really look like a traditional
Mathmo.
Yeah, person with a beard scribbling on a chalkboard. I'm quite proud to have then gone on to be a maths teacher to show younger children that really it's not about what you look like, it's about what you bring to a problem and your kind of inquisitiveness. And there's a joke that mathematicians are just those people who don't know when to give up and they just keep solving a problem. They keep going long after everyone else has given up. And so that kind of tenacity and push to find the right answer is really something that drives mathematicians, but I think a lot of people in technology as well. And so then after being a teacher, I moved to the NCSC, UK National Cyber Security Centre, which is the UK technical authority for government and citizens. And its job is to make the UK the safest place to live and work online. And I was a mathematician there for 7 years. It's a very exciting place to be. And I moved into more security technologies, looking at kind of internet ecosystems, participating in internet engineering groups and the security of the IoT, setting global standards and policy for that. And then, I ended up at Splunk as a strategic advisor. So it's quite an interesting thread of how my career evolved, starting with mathematics to go to technology and then more into security and finally ending up in kind of strategy, technical space.
Yeah, it's a very interesting journey. But the common thread seems to be very much, if you're into maths, you're probably a problem solver. Very, very applicable in the real world.
That's it. And it's that kind of logical skill, I think. So a lot of people do think mathematicians, it's just sitting on your own, doing a lot of equations or sums, actually. And it's really much more about that collaborative aspect, kind of workshops, bringing a different viewpoint, being very logical in your processes and seeing visualizations of things that people can't visualize in their heads. We talk about multi-dimensions, but it's really this inquisitive, relentless nature of attacking a problem. And so a lot of mathematicians also love puzzles because it's the same thing, something impossible seemingly, and you chip away at it, look at it with a different lens, turn the piece of paper around, it looks different upside down. And it's all those kind
You'd be great in a pub quiz, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
When you're dingbats.
So the puzzle books that GCHQ released, those are written by some of the mathematicians, and it's just such an interesting set of things to, and I love them. My parents read them and just get completely stuck and quickly go to the answers. But I think the point is, if you never flick to the answers, that's the real.
That's a method. That's the one, yeah. So do you get to talk to a lot of people in corporate space about the problems that they're dealing with at the moment?
Yeah, so now with Splunk, I am much more in that kind of industry space and understanding the kind of challenges, because everyone says this, but the last couple of years have been unprecedented. And we're seeing a lot of the repercussions of that now that we've moved away from kind of emergency sprint responses and more into long-term, looking at what was done and what could have been done better. And so that brings us into those topics of resilience. And with global geopolitics, I'm not going to mention what everyone thinks I'm going to mention, but the sustainability kind of aspect with COP26 and the G7.
Yeah.
Really, that's top of mind as well. So,
great.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with the resilience piece. And we don't have to necessarily think about the pandemic or wars to know that there is a requirement to be resilient, to curveballs coming along. Indeed, sustainability might bring a few more curveballs, because as global warming happens, there's going to be more unprecedented natural events as well, which we'll have to kind of be ready for.
Yeah.
And why are we as technicians talking about this then? How can tech help with resilience?
It's a very good, I think not many companies are planning to go extinct, right? They've not got, next year, that's when we'll go bust. It's more about understanding, and it doesn't have to be a big event either. The pandemic and war, these are massive events, but what if half your team resigned tomorrow?
Yeah.
Are you able to cope with that sudden drop in resource? What's your plan for continuing your base operating offering? And I think a lot of companies, maybe the pandemic threw things into sharp relief, and you saw companies that did very well because of all their preparation and their backup plans. And you saw companies that were maybe a bit more hand to mouth and not so well prepared. And I think it's becoming more top of mind for C-suite and execs that we see, just that you cannot sort of hope it will be okay anymore. And if you do have, if the worst happens, you have a breach, you are, hit with ransomware, it's no longer acceptable to have no response plan in place. It's no longer, it's more about how you respond to that challenge rather than hoping it never meets you in the first place. And so I think a lot of security trends, but also, this global shift is really putting it top of mind for a lot of our C-suite that we see.
Yes. And that what you mentioned there was a base operating model. Is that basically saying we like to operate with all these things in hand, but let's scale back? What's the minimum we can operate with?
Absolutely. So a lot of companies, want to do everything. Yeah. And that's great. It's great to have the ambition and the innovation, but you have to have this must, should, and could kind of tiering, and work out what is in that must offering. What's your minimum that you will always offer? And that could be in terms of time, it could be in terms of capacity, then your should is things you really ought to do. And could is sort of bigger space further away. And we do like to talk about this tiering of priorities and just make sure, that the tech supports what people have there, because you need to have this ability to monitor what's going on. You need to have the data that allows you to do what you need to do in those spaces. But it's really a much bigger thing about just making sure. Actually going back to kind of engineering on the ground level, used to have developers that would code something and a chaos monkey library that would come in and purposefully do things wrong. And it was called the Chaos Monkey, and you didn't know what it was going to do, right? So it could delete loads of files, it could change some variable, and it was all about how robust.
Is that an automated Chaos Monkey?
Yes.
Was it?
Yeah,
I love it.
It's
okay.
Really, so I actually have an in-person Chaos Monkey who lives with me. I didn't know when I invited him to live with me it would be like that, but we'll break things, leave the door unlocked, forget the key, whatever that is. And it's what's your resilience? What's your coming back from that? Have you put spare keys with the neighbours? And over time, it's chaos at the time, but over time it improves your testing, it improves your checking, it improves your monitoring, and when a real you are better prepared. And so it's almost taking that principle to the resilience space.
It's another thing where developers have done it quite well in the past, right? And just trying to scale it up on the whole technical side.
And I think when we have sort of exercising, that's where we see it maybe at the more C-suite level. If there's one thing I would love everyone to do immediately after this podcast, it's go and check your backup. Right, go check that they are properly offline, they're properly good, and you can restore from them, so that when you are hit by ransomware, should the worst happen and you do have to restore, you are quite confident in that restoration process, and you don't have to pay these criminals essentially. But if you ask people, we would never pay the ransom, you say, okay, so what's your backup? What's your resuming?
What's your playbook for doing that?
Exactly, and it's this, and when was the last time you did that? So it's about building in those checks of resilience, really.
Yeah, and that really helps with the speed of recovery as well, right?
Oh, well, so ransomware is a whole different kettle of fish. I think we're much more used to people kind of coming in, stealing data, that's it, short, sharp shock, and it's done. But the whole process of being hit by ransomware, there's a lot longer in the management process and the remediation. We see a lot of double or triple exploitation, where not only the data is encrypted, but then it's also exfilled and taken away before. And so you have attackers with a lot of data and your systems, unable to operate. And and there's this sense of, it's called invisible dread, where it can be months before that data is published or released, and you don't know exactly what the attackers have taken. And of course, the way to know is with proper, assuming you have a breach, make it difficult for them to move around once they're in the network, to monitor properly what's going on, and just prevent them from taking everything taking everything and at least knowing what they've taken if they do take something. So ransomware is such a long game. And when we talk about ransomware, people don't often mention the kind of personal cost. I think, and this builds into the resilience thing, half your team, it's stressful. Yeah. There's capacity for burnout. It's really a marathon, not a sprint, because the remediation takes weeks, months. And so how do you plan for that? What's your contingency? What's your cushion that you can allow people to take, in that case?
Yeah, and that's where having those extra bits of thinking about the burnout is where you're thinking very strategically. I was just thinking technically there, visibility, what files and stuff, but actually, how are the people going to be dealing with it? Have they practiced? Are they okay?
Well, it's people, process, tech. So there's the tech remediation, absolutely, and that's key, that's central. But, and I feel like perhaps speaking as a woman in technology, think more of the human side more often. And for me, there's a need for instant responders to be more like, have a better bedside manner, essentially. You can't come in and blame or just even to be, these are victims of crime. Yeah. And they're often quite vulnerable, very emotionally upset, you know, because the impact is not just on your operations, and finance and reputation, but it's people's careers. Yeah. There's often a human cost, not just in terms of burnout for your staff, but your customers or, worry for people, particularly if it's certain types of organisation that provide public services perhaps, and it's people's livelihoods and things that you're dealing with. So that people side of things is often underestimated with ransomware. And I think it's important to remember, if you're an instant responder or if you're just dealing with anyone in that case, that those are victims of crime.
Yeah, if you put it that way, it makes you a lot more empathic to their...
You have to be empathetic because what they're going through is, hopefully once in a lifetime, but really shocking. Yeah. And, rarely if someone's been burgled, would you go in and say, but what was your lock like? And what did it... You would be a lot more sympathetic, I think. And it's about understanding what went wrong, absolutely, lessons learned. But there is sort of a time and a place and a bedside manner that I think really needs to be brought there.
Oh, that's really interesting. Now, do you have an example where Splunk has helped with resilience?
Well, there's a very good case study, and I'm going to laugh at this because my colleague told me about it recently with a lot of pizza puns, but essentially Domino's pizza.
Okay.
So during the halftime show for the Super Bowl, so very American thing, but there's a huge spike in ordering pizzas. Okay. And Domino's actually described themselves as a pizza company, a data company that makes pizzas.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so very data first kind of strategy.
Okay.
And in terms of just dealing with peaks and ability to cope with surge in traffic, how they prioritize and make sure they've got the right staff on, and, certain areas are going to be busy. They can predict spikes in demand and kind of prepare as best they can for the halftime show, get people to order a pizza and get it delivered in that short break while they're enjoying whichever pop star is doing the...
Yeah, who knows? Always big. Okay.
Exactly. So for them, it's about kind of understanding the pace and being able to have the resilience. Obviously, their infrastructure stays up and people are, the website doesn't go down even with this huge surge, and understanding those cushions of operating kind of space. But then there's also the agility to respond. So if the halftime show, I don't know, was earlier or cut short or was delayed for some reason, they've got these kind of cushions and ability to respond to that. So with resilience, we say it's like ambidextrous, that, you can be resilient as anything, but if you're too locked into something and you're not able to pivot quickly to adapt to what's going on, to take advantage of what's going on, then that's also a problem.
So you've got to be resilient not only for the recovery, but also when it's going to happen and how you're set up for it.
Exactly. And so, I've spoken about security because that's my...
I know, I'm saying recovery there as though it's that, but actually scaling up to demand is also resilience too. Okay. Yeah, I see. And so Domino's use Splunk.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So we have on our website, I'm not a salesperson, so this is going to be naturally very awkward. But on our website, there's actually loads of case studies that as a technologist, I found really interesting to kind of see the range of what people do.
I know. People use Splunk for everything. It's amazing.
It's astonishing, actually. Yeah. And I think what's really nice is when you have this data for just, like making sure you can deliver your pizzas and you've got logistics all sorted out, you can also use it for other things like calculating your carbon footprint, right? Like if you know where your drivers are and their average length of delivery, you can very accurately calculate that and see, take a snapshot and use that as a benchmark to improve from. So, you're not using more Splunk. It's the data you already have. You're just applying some different lens to it. So.
That's Splunk's basically, isn't it? Put what is it? Data to action, action to data?
Turn data into doing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Well,
I knew there was action or something.
No,
Neither of us are sales, clearly.
No. But, I mean, that's the thing that, you can have a lot of data and lovely dashboards. And you have a good look, and that's lovely. And my chaos monkey enjoys a good look. He's often just having a good look around. But you need to actually do something with that.
With it, yeah.
And it's not enough to just kind of, oh, that's my carbon footprint, jolly good. You haven't completed that. It's like looking at the gender pay gap for CEOs. Okay, you know what it is.
What are you going to do about it?
Exactly. The next question is always that. So you can't just have it, yes, we've calculated it, jolly good. And you need to be able to see, if I make this intervention, what's the impact, for how long? Yeah. But also, I mean, it's not a popular thing, but calculate the carbon footprint of taking that data and calculate, because...
Well, yeah, let's talk about sustainability then, because we've started to anyway. So the first offering really that Splunk can do is to get that visibility. But also it can help with tweaks. So if you make a change, let's see the impact of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
But what you're saying is even tracking that visibility obviously will cost energy because it's going to be stored somewhere.
Exactly.
So you just got to make sure that you don't spend so much energy monitoring that you have a negative balance.
That's exactly it. And I think it's one of those things that that's the imperative. You have to turn that data into doing something. If you're just capturing it, that's actually adding to your problem. So you need to be capturing, say, the impact of running these buses or whatever between your different sites. Mm-hmm. Work out the impact of adding an extra bus in terms of what individual commuter carbon you would save, and then check that's worth it. Yeah, and then implement that, because otherwise you've just kind of done a nice navel gazing exercise.
Yeah, pretty report. And that's what I feel a lot of people are doing, because we all have to do a carbon footprint. I've done Somerford's, but the main thing is, what are we going to do about it then? Yeah. Like, how are we going to impact this?
Absolutely.
And then check it every year. Well, more, but...
Yeah, so having more real-time kind of impact, it would be lovely to say after a week of doing this, we have saved this much carbon. Or, I think it's a snapshot, a benchmark to go from. But if you can understand your hotspots, there's no pun intended there, but if you can understand your kind of big carbon emission places, then you can start to drill down. Okay, why is that? What would this intervention make a difference on? And so on, yeah.
Cool. So has Splunk helped anyone in particular on sustainability?
We've got some customers in early kind of trial of it. So nothing I can, unfortunately.
Nothing you can quote, but there's a toolkit, did you say?
That's right. So it's actually only released last week. So there's blogs and everything online. But it's the sustainability toolkit, if you search for that. And it's a dashboard. It's using the greenhouse gas reporting protocol, which covers 3 different scopes, different types of emissions. So there's direct, indirect, and other indirect, or like supply chain and things. So it's energy you purchase, or things you are directly contributing, like manufacturing assets and things. And then finally, anything in your supply chain, anything else, which is...
I need that toolkit.
Yeah.
I did that all manually.
Oh my gosh.
Fun.
So it automatically takes in certain types of data feeds, like if you have electricity bills or, data centers.
Data centers or, your cloud.
Yeah. So I saw a stat the other day. It shocked me that the carbon footprint of data centers globally is the same as the airline industry.
Really?
2% of global carbon. And that's huge, because I think the airline industry is often cited, maybe because it's very visible, but data centers you don't really think about so much.
But everyone stores everything on the cloud now. So you forget that by keeping every single photo of your children's lives, for example, in my case, is contributing.
Yeah.
But then I think that one of them, I think GCP is fully
it is
green, isn't it?
It's
renewable?
Net zero. That's right. Yeah. And
so that's amazing.
And then ambitions to run on exactly renewable energy. And it's the same for AWS as well. And so I think that big cloud providers recognize that there is this
They're bad, so we need to sort it.
Well, there's a need to be responsible.
Yeah.
And so obviously Splunk, we partner with all different clouds. And so it's good for us as well to be able to say, here's the cost or saving for you moving to this cloud, but also here's the carbon impact. Here's what you will be able to say instead of running on-prem and presumably not offsetting it anywhere. No. You can move everything to a cloud where it is being offset for you. Yeah. And that's quite attractive in terms of...
That is attractive, yeah. No, that's great. So your job is exciting, I think.
It's
Talking about these big technical problems with people who are grappling with them in the corporate world. Yeah. So we've explored resilience, we've explored sustainability. What's the main challenge you'd give to someone who's listening to this? So what, having listened to that, what they're going to do?
So what? I would ask, what's your kind of personal chaos monkey that you've got going on? How do you test your resilience? What's the worst thing that could happen to you and you could still operate?
Yeah.
And that could be many things. It could be your team going off sick. It could be your offices moving, or it could, what is the worst thing that could happen yet you would still be able to operate? And could you make that any better?
Okay. So you got to think through, what is the worst thing that can happen, and how would I carry on? Exactly,
yeah. And how easy is that, in terms of how long could you sustain that for?
Okay.
So really I would challenge people to think about, their resilience. We're putting out some materials very shortly that should be available from Splunk as well, to kind of go through frameworks and models and just self-assess really on where you are. And if you want to improve that resilience, obviously we're always here, so many other people to talk to you about it.
So we'll have this posted on LinkedIn and things, I think. So I guess people will be free to talk to either you or me.
Yeah, definitely. On linkedin.com/Kirsty. I'm quite proud of that to have got the URL.
Double Kirsty.
Kirsty, yeah.
The first Kirsty on LinkedIn.
I can't believe normal Kirsty was taken.
No.
Do reach out. Kirsty Paine, working at Splunk, so you'll be able to find me. And just let's start a conversation, because I think it's just such a top of mind topic for a lot of people. We're here to help, really.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for spending the time talking to us.
Thank you for spending the time talking to me.
It was really interesting.
It's great to have met you, and I'm really all the best for the rest of the series.
Thank you.
Thank you.